Hi, everyone. This is Rico Figliolini, host of Pastry Corners Life, the podcast that talks about everything happening not only in the city of Pastry Corners, but things that relate and would affect the residents and the people that live here, the workers that live in Pastry Corners. We're a work, live, and play community. And so politics sometimes gets in the way, right? So we have elections coming up soon. In another year, there'll be elections that were even this year, city elections actually. But next year we have the Gwinnett County Solicitor's General's office that's going to have be up for election. And we have a guest today that's going to be a candidate in that race. So let me bring her on, Lisamarie Bristol. Hey, Lisa, how are you?
Good evening. I'm great. How are you?
Good, thanks. It's been a brutal hot day today, so think we're all inside right now, right?
Yes, very much.
So by the time this streams, hopefully it'll be a little cooler out there. But I'm glad that you came out. I've done these candidate interviews before, a variety of them, Gwinnett County Supreme Court candidates, State House candidates, congressional candidates. So it's always great to be able to find out and interview and question those running for office to see why they're running, to find out their background, how they feel about certain issues, where they stand. So I'm glad that you're here to be able to do this with us.
Thank you
You have
so much.
Sure, and you have a great background. I mean, I think that especially for the office you're running for, you've dealt with both sides of the fence, if you will. So tell us, because most people really don't know what the Gwinnett County Solicitor General's office, what you would do once you win that seat. Uh, so what does the office do? Explain that to our listeners right now.
Absolutely. Well, first, Rico, thank you so much for the invitation. I really
Sure.
appreciate the opportunity to be here and to speak to your audience and to hopefully answer some questions that they may have about this race. To answer that, the Solicitor General is the prosecutor in the county that is responsible for handling all prosecution of cases that go through state court and recorder's court. So that's any misdemeanor, traffic violations, or county ordinances will likely go through the Solicitor General's office. If there's a felony attached, or if the person involved is a juvenile, then it would go to a different court. But most often, it's going to be in state court in the Solicitor General's office.
And that office from the county website handles like 9,000 misdemeanor cases through the year.
It
That's a
does.
lot. Yeah. So
It
I
is.
don't, and how many, I don't even know how many staff members are in that office or how that works, but I'm sure you'd be the manager of that office, if you will.
Yes. So it fluctuates. You're right. Gwinnett County is the second largest county in the state. We have a very large Solicitor General's office. I actually interned in the office way back in 2008.
Oh, wow.
And so we have six state court judges in state
Mhm.
court. We have three recorder's court judges over in recorder's court. We also handle things at the jail in that office. So it's a pretty robust office.
Yeah.
It staffs, you know, prosecutors, victim advocates, legal staff, investigators. So it's a pretty full staff. I'm not sure what the actual number of positions are at this time because it's changed over the years.
Sure.
But we have a lot of judges and a lot of, like you said, a lot of volume to deal with in that office.
For sure. So now that we understand a little bit about what that office is about, why don't we backtrack a little bit and tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, your experience, where you've come from, so this way people can understand who Lisa Marie Bristol is.
Absolutely. Well, I'm a proud graduate of Georgia State College of Law, class of '09. Go Panthers. When I graduated, I actually started off on the other side. I started off doing criminal defense work down in Henry and Clayton counties.
Great.
I did that for about a year before I moved to the public defender's office in Walton County. And I spent
Mhm.
3 years out in Walton County as a public defender, where I handled, again, just like in Henry and Clayton County, where I was handling state court, in Walton, I handled everything. So from traffic violations up to murders, I was a public defender for all kinds of cases.
Great.
I transitioned back to prosecution in 2014, I believe, is when I joined the
Mhm.
DeKalb County Solicitor General's office. I was there for about 4 years before I came home to Gwinnett County Gwinnett's been home for my husband and I and our three children for over 10 years now. And we love it here. We chose Gwinnett quite intentionally to raise our family, and we're thrilled to be a part of this community. And so when I joined the Gwinnett County District Attorney's Office, it really gave me an opportunity to dig deeper into the community that I live in, to understand our community a lot more. And I spent 3 years there. I'm currently back in the DeKalb County District Attorney's Office in a senior assistant district attorney position.
Mhm.
And, I did that for a couple of reasons. It just gave me a really good opportunity to have a little space in order to run for Gwinnett County Solicitor General.
Now you have three kids, 8 to 14.
Yes.
Um, you know, Gwinnett County has faced a lot of different changes. Um, Diversity, um, crime rate to some degree has risen. Schools where kids have to either they're doing remote work. I'm sure your kids had to face that, or going back to school now with mask mandates, um, and who knows what other mandates that may come. But you're tasked as a prosecutor. You're tasked to protect and the safety of the Gwinnett citizen, right? Um, Law and order, but the office also handles victim crime victim assistance programs, which is part and parcel of that, right?
Yes.
You become a victim of a crime, the county doesn't want to just leave you out in the cold. The county wants to be able to help you through that. Um, you were a public defender for a while, and you decided to go to the other side, if you will, and become a prosecutor. What motivated you to do that? To do the prosecution side. What did you see that you decided to go there?
Well, I enjoyed my time as a public defender. I did. I was in a great office with great people. Um, but the power really lies with the state. And the reality is, no matter how reasonable my recommendation may have been as a public defender, if I knew my clients, I knew what their limitations were, what their parameters were, and if I made a reasonable request, if the prosecutor said no, or if the prosecutor was unreasonable, or whatever the situation was, it didn't
Yeah.
matter. I was powerless to kind of set my client up to be in the best position possible to be successful. And that became frustrating,
Mm.
um, because the prosecutor in this system is the one that has all of the power. The prosecutor decides what
Right.
charges to bring, how many charges to bring. The judge really can only rule on what's before them. So that became a kind of a constant issue. And I realized, if I can look at it on the front end as the prosecutor and make, more intelligent or more holistic charging decisions, it
Hmm.
would streamline the process. And so that's what I fortunately was able to do when I became a prosecutor, especially in the DeKalb solicitor's office. I could look at my cases and be more critical at the front end and think to myself, hey, this person is shoplifting basic needs. Perhaps they can't handle a $500 fine plus surcharges. Maybe we need to look at community service. Maybe we need to look at other alternatives. And that was something as the prosecutor that I could just put out there, as opposed to hoping to come across the right prosecutor who was willing to hear my considerations.
I think what happens is that most people don't, wonder why um, prosecutors will choose what to prosecute, right? Um, so with the Georgia election laws, the way it's turned out right now, you can be prosecuted for supplying um, drink or food to someone online for election. Now, prosecutor doesn't have to prosecute that. You can choose where to spend your resources. Is that really where you want to spend your resources, or do you want to spend the resources somewhere else more effectively, where it could have a bigger impact on safety and community? Does that make sense? I guess.
It does. Exactly. Like the prosecutor, there is a separation of powers. And
Yeah.
obviously, the prosecutor is responsible for enforcing the laws that the legislature has set out. But there's still a lot of discretion there's still a lot of, um, there's a big spectrum of what we can and cannot do.
Mhm.
And you're absolutely correct. You, as the prosecutor, have the power to look at, is this something that we need to expend a lot of resources on? Do I need to have my investigator out pulling reports and street cam videos and things of that nature on this case? Or do I need to realistically look at what's happening, make a triage assessment, and then pour my resources into these DUI cases, which is a big part of what the Solicitor General's office handles, or
Right.
this domestic violence case? Domestic violence, family violence, simple battery, simple assault, stalking, those are all misdemeanors that are typically handled by the Solicitor General's office. Those are cases that typically require more resources, more time,
Mhm.
more training for the victim advocates and the investigators. And so the prosecutor really has the responsibility, in my opinion, to reasonably use the resources of the state to focus on the cases that need those resources.
Are you finding, because you've worked with the office and DeKalb as well, what would you change coming in? Or are there anything, aside from what we just discussed, setting parameters of what you want to do? Are there anything within the office structure that you would change the way they operate and such?
Well, I'm not 100% certain how the office operates in its current structure.
Okay.
One thing I would like to focus on is I would like to make sure that we are focused on triaging the right cases and using our resources on the cases that need the resources. And that might mean training, it might be shuffling how things are done and how accusations are done and drafted.
Mhm.
But I would like to see more emphasis on um, getting rid of the cases that don't need to be prosecuted. The ones that come in, the ones that are easily resolved either with a program or with, a diversion program or accountability court. Get those done at the front end so we can focus on the ones that we do need to take to trial. There are a lot of cases that do still need to be tried, and for
Sure.
every case that we kind of bog down the system with something because of an unreasonable offer or we're just not returning a phone call, that takes away from the cases and therefore from the victims who need justice, and now it's delayed. And so I would really want to focus on um, making it a priority that
Mhm.
our office identifies quicker the cases that need the resources so we can focus on those, and then we can properly route the ones that have alternative resolution options.
And that would make sense, I guess. And part of what you want to do is you want to make sure that the perpetrator, if you will, doesn't have to keep coming back again into the system. Because, like you said, maybe it is um, food that they need that they're shoplifting or necessities of life. And I know some people will say, well, you need to punish that. Yeah. And you're not saying you're not going to punish that. What you're saying is that if there's other programs that can help them get out of what they're doing, that means they're not going to do it again, right? I mean, um, and then you're still addressing the victim rights as well, and
Absolutely.
what has
Um,
to deal with that.
our victims have to be a priority, whether
Mhm.
it is the small business owner whose merchandise is stolen or the victim of a crime. Our victims absolutely have to be a priority. But we have to think holistically. We don't want them to be re victimized. So, what can we do? If is it an anger management issue? Is it a conflict resolution issue? It might be an alcohol and a drug issue. If we can try and identify some of those problems at the outset and put the right treatment, put the right programs, get them in the right supervision and structured situation, I think we have a stronger chance of breaking the cycle of recidivism. So, if the person is shoplifting, for example,
Mhm.
um, for bare necessities because they can't get a job, because they don't have their education, rather than fining them hundreds of dollars and putting them on probation with a monthly supervision fee, perhaps what we need to look at is getting them into a program to get their GED or hooking them up with a community partnership where they can get some technical or trade skill training so that they can, in fact, get the resources that they need to break that cycle. If we put people on probation, which is a monthly supervision fee, which is, taking time off of work if they have it to come and report, and all we do is kind of push them down further and further. When probation is over, we're leaving them worse than how we found them.
Probation fee. That means they're paying a fee every month on that
Every
probation.
month,
Really?
yes.
What is that fee? Is
It's usually, last time I checked, was around $40 a month,
uh,
in monthly supervision fees. Sometimes those fees can be waived, sometimes they're not. But it definitely can be a domino effect. It
yeah,
absolutely can be a situation where I'm shoplifting $50 worth of goods. Um, I've now been caught, I've been arrested, I'm in jail. Now, maybe there's restitution owed, so the victim is owed money for whatever the crime was.
right, right.
Supervision fees, a fine, charges for class. It gets expensive.
I
And I
would
think if
think.
we're not careful, it just kind of avalanches against people and just sets them up to just steal bigger and better the next time.
All right. When you end up with being in the hole even more, you're not gonna just go with the little stuff anymore.
Exactly.
Um, so rising crime rates. I mean, the hope is that the way you're looking at it, you'd be able to curtail some of that. Um, now, different crimes, right? Violent crime. I don't, depending on your office and what it can handle. Some of the crimes are out of your hands anyway because they're not dealt with your office, right?
Yes. Well, the reality is, though, violent crimes have gone up, I think, about 62% in 2020. And that trend is continuing in 2021, which is really unfortunate. So, violent crime is a community issue. And this is really important because what we need to realize is that crime is not a law enforcement issue, it's a community issue. And
Hmm.
that means it impacts everyone, and everyone needs to come together and work holistically to address the issues, whether it's from the law enforcement side, the education side, the community partnership side, the business side. And the rise in crime rates are a problem. A lot of family violence crimes start as a misdemeanor. Our opportunity for effective intervention with our victims, putting safety plans in place, letting them know what their rights and their options are, hopefully getting conflict resolution or family violence intervention in place at that first incident before it escalates to an aggravated assault or strangulation or, heaven forbid, a murder.
Yeah, yeah.
So yes, they're not as serious in theory, but they build on each other. So if we can get that treatment and that effective intervention in place the first time or earlier in the process, the hope is that they don't then turn around and come back and join the DA's office with a more violent felony.
Now, you also talked about criminal justice reform, and I mean, is that part of it? What would that look like with the office?
I think criminal justice reform at the Solicitor General's office is the opportunity. We have the opportunity to have accountability courts, so we can hold people accountable for their behavior, and make sure that our victims are made whole. Try and keep our communities safer, without just punishing them, putting them in jail, throwing them on probation, and forgetting about them. So let's correct the behavior and do the treatment. Criminal justice reform at the Solicitor General's office level looks like better community partnerships with conflict resolution courses, education training, alcohol and drug abuse evaluations and treatments. And we have all of those things available to us here in Gwinnett County. We just really need to dig deeper and tap into that, um, so that we're not just setting people out to do the exact same thing that they've already been punished for doing.
Right. Does COVID change a lot of things to some degree this past year and a half? I know when I was speaking to one of the Gwinnett Superior Court judge candidates, she talked about how court cases would be done through video, through online. It's not the same thing, obviously, when you see a victim or you see a criminal being prosecuted. You want to be in person with them to be able to see them eye to eye versus on a screen, right? Becomes less impactful, I think, the situation. Is there anything that you see that you would change, technologically, or how has it worked over the past year of being a prosecutor with that?
Well, those kinds of decisions are a lot of times are left up, not only up to, but that's a collaboration. So between the district attorney, the solicitor, the chief court judges, um, everyone has to, and the defense bar, everyone needs to have a seat at the table to figure out what can we do to effectively still move cases, keep our community safe, do our part. We're in the middle of a global pandemic, obviously, which has just,
Right.
I think it's shifted our criminal justice system in ways that we're going to take years to figure out the true impact of what's gone on. I
Yeah.
think that, again, front loading cases and looking critically at cases when they come in, as opposed to just kind of shuffling them into the pile without being more critical, is a huge part. People don't always realize that a pending misdemeanor has a huge impact on their lives. It could impact schooling, school loans, job
Hmm.
applications,
Sure.
housing opportunities. So
Right.
while if you have a case that's just sitting there in the queue, nobody's calling victims, nobody's looking for, like, we need to move our cases at the front end. Uh, the sad reality is criminal cases don't age well. So the longer they sit, it doesn't get better like wine.
Right.
So we need to be more prudent about looking at them critically at the front end. And those that don't need to be in the queue need to be removed. Those who minor violations or people who don't have much of a history or don't have any history at all, we can put them in a diversion program. And for those who may not know, pretrial diversion is typically a program where someone who has minimal to no criminal history, and it's a non-violent case in most cases,
Mhm.
they can enter a program where they are still supervised for a period of several months to a couple of years, depending on the charges, where they are put through a program where they can do anger management, maybe a drug and alcohol evaluation, whatever treatment is deemed appropriate in their case, perhaps a mental health evaluation. But they go through the program, they're still being supervised, but they're not being prosecuted. And if they successfully complete that program, then we can dispose of their case that way. Those cases don't take as many resources as a full blown jury trial.
I would think, yes. Time and budget. You were talking about advocating for victim rights.
Yes.
Um, and we talked a little bit about that before, but would there be anything different that you would do that's currently being done? How would you handle victim rights?
Well,
Where
again,
would you
I'm not
change?
100% certain how it's being done now, but I know that Marcy's Law is definitely in place, and victims do have a constitutional right to be kept informed of their cases.
Sure.
We need to be sure that our victim advocates are maintaining reasonable contact with our victims, that they're being alerted of each and every court appearance, because they have the right to appear and be there. We need
Hmm.
to make sure that we're putting resources in place or connecting our victims with resources as needed. There is no point in putting the suspect through a bunch of anger management training or conflict resolution training. If the victim is saying that they need help as well, it's our responsibility to provide those resources to them as well. I would love to see our program increased and beefed up so that we could bring in the training necessary to make sure that our victim advocates are asking the right questions, are communicating with the victims to ensure that safety plans are being put in place if necessary, um, even with restitution for financial cases, ensuring that we know what damages are you entitled to and how can we get those back for you.
Right. For sure. And domestic violence cases are a little different, right? You do have to address both sides of that a little differently than a normal um, crime. But beyond that, we talked a little bit earlier about community partners and responsibility. Um, I know that you're part of Leadership Gwinnett now, class
Yes.
of 2020, which is cool. Um, I think there's 42 odd people there from a variety of backgrounds. So tell us, so did that start already, actually? Or
It hasn't. Actually, I
it
was
hasn't?
originally
Okay.
selected for the class of 2021. but COVID.
Right.
So Leadership Gwinnett made the decision for our safety to defer for the year.
Mhm.
And so we've recently announced being a part of class of 2022. From what I understand, we will be the longest class ever. Um, and
Yeah,
so we're
because of the pandemic. Yeah, gotcha.
definitely. And so I didn't make that decision lightly either. The Leadership Gwinnett process is very intense.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure it's a 10-month program where you
Hmm.
take a really deep dive in all facets of our community, education, civics, infrastructure, the criminal justice side. Like you really
Right.
get to dig deep. And after doing the Glance Gwinnett program, probably a couple years ago at this point, I just knew that this was definitely a program I wanted to invest the time and the energy into. And I'm so grateful to have an opportunity to start. I believe we're starting next month.
Okay. Yeah, for people that don't know, I mean, obviously the variety of exposure and experience that you get through that 10 months, for any leader, any politician, any government worker, or leaders within the community of nonprofit organizations, because you are surrounded by a variety of people. It's great to not only learn about those areas, but also learn from each other, right? Because you get to see what other people's experiences have been. So
Absolutely.
it's
And
great.
everyone gets to bring a little something different to the table.
Right.
A career educator will be great to learn from because my exposure to education is just as a parent with my three children. And so while I'm grateful, I have one child in each school in my cluster. I have a
Oh, wow.
third grader, a sixth grader, and a high school freshman. It's still a very different perspective than that of the educator. So that's just one
Sure.
example. I'm excited to learn from them, from their purview.
It's almost like, I mean, I've been doing these podcasts for about 4 years now, I think, and I get a chance to meet a variety of people, but it's very different when you do it so intensified in that type of program, and you learn from so many experiences. Um, so community involvement outside criminal law, you've been involved in other things, I'm sure. So why don't you share a little bit with us about what that is?
Sure. Well, one of the things I'm most proud of is I'm actually a part of a group, the National Clearinghouse on Abuse in Later Life, which is actually
Mhm.
based out of Wisconsin. It is a federally funded group under the Department of Justice. And I've been teaching with that group since 2017. And our focus is on training prosecutors and law enforcement, as well as sometimes advocates and other community partners on the prosecution of elder abuse cases. I love the work beyond getting to travel and meet new people all across the country. Uh, our population is definitely aging, and
Mhm.
it's a beautiful thing. But unfortunately, it sometimes breeds opportunities for people to take advantage of those who have lived a beautiful life. And so it's really wonderful to be part of such a robust project where I get to go and meet people and learn about different parts of the country and help them navigate these cases because they're just so important. Beyond that, I'm involved with our local church. My family and I,
Okay.
we've been members of Berean Christian Church Gwinnett for about 10 years now.
Nice.
Um, so we're all involved in ministry. I'm part of the music ministry, and that's home. I'm so grateful for them to keep me grounded. And, my children are very involved in the youth and the children's ministries there. So I just really try, and then I run my kids around, which they are the real bosses.
Yeah, I'm
So,
sure. I'm sure. Are they
yes,
involved in sports or after school activities?
they're involved in everything. So my oldest is in marching band with Shiloh,
Oh, well.
which is a beast that I was not at all prepared for, but he's so excited. He is a trombone player.
Oh, cool.
My middle son is a black belt in karate, so he spends several hours a week at the dojo training.
Black belt.
Yes,
Wow, great.
he tested for his black belt last October. It was beautiful to see the progression in his skill set and his confidence. And so we're so proud of him that he has stuck through it all these years and made his black belt. And my daughter dances. So my daughter has been a dancer with 777 Dance Studios in Snellville. Um, she does ballet, jazz, tap, hip hop, tumbling.
Wow.
So we stay very busy running the
I can
children
see that.
around.
Yeah, I
getting them
could see
there.
that. You were all over the place. Yes. Wow. Did the karate black belt watch any of the Olympics
He
karate?
did.
Did,
He did. It was interesting to see if you stick with this, these are some of the things that can happen. So it was
right.
interesting to see him experience for the first time it on an international stage and really see it beyond his own dojo. So it's
Yeah.
like it's outside of Snellville. You can go so much further, and he's
Oh, for sure.
dedicated.
For sure. He's young, so he got plenty of time
Exactly. He's only
to hone
11.
his. Yes, he can hone and a black belt at 11. That's cool.
Mhm.
Um, you've also been part of Georgia State University's top 40 under 40 alumni. Um, you've been part of, well, you're president of the Greater Atlanta Black Prosecutor Association,
Yes,
um, the member of the Gate City Bar Association, and I mean, you're involved. You're out there. This is the first office that you're running for, I think, right?
it is. I am
Right.
not a politician. I
Yeah.
am a community servant. And it's interesting because those who know me know I always said I would never ever run for office. But I really do feel compelled. I want to make my community safer. I want to make it better for my children and my neighbors' children and for all of us.
Yeah.
And so it's not something I chose lightly,
Mhm.
but definitely something I am committed to. And I want to see these gaps in our services. I want to see them filled. I want to see a camaraderie among our colleagues that we can do this and we can have a better, safer, greater Gwinnett. And that's what I'm working towards.
Cool. So tell us, we're at the end of our time together, and I appreciate you sharing everything with us that you have so far. Being not a politician, but being a prosecutor that's running for office, such being a politician in a way. I'm sure there's things out there that you have to do. You have to go to the barbecues, maybe. You have to do certain things like that. So, which is good. You get to meet a lot of community people and such. Do you want to share with us where you might be, what you're going to be doing next month or so, or how people can find out more information about Lisa Marie Bristol in your campaign?
Absolutely. Well, right now my focus is on meeting the I'm sorry, meeting the
The
voters.
voter,
So
right?
I am canvassing. We are knocking on doors and we are
Yep.
trying to meet as many voters as possible. For people who are interested in volunteering or just getting to know more about me, you can certainly go to www.lisamarie, Lisamarie, Bristol, Bristol.com. There's tons of ways that people can get involved. I plan to be in as many places as I can. Um, I've
Right.
enjoyed, Gwinnett has a lot going on, and it's been something I've always enjoyed with my family, and now it's something I enjoy on another level. So, festivals and parades and food truck Fridays in Duluth, fantastic. Food Truck Tuesdays in Lilburn. Sugar Hill has some great concert series. So really
Mm-hmm.
just trying to get out and meet the people. Um,
Right.
that's been a huge thing. I'm on social media. I'm on Facebook and
Right.
Instagram under Lisa Marie Bristol for Solicitor General. So people can jump on. They can join my list serve to get the emails. They
Mm-hmm.
can donate right on my website because it does cost money to reach all the voters, and that's what I'm trying to
Sure.
do. And that's what we're doing. So, you might get a knock on your door. If you see someone in a baby blue t shirt, please answer and say hello.
All right, cool. And for those that, just as a reminder, the election is actually next year, May 24th, 2022.
Yes.
So early in the year versus November. I forget if this is a nonpartisan race or is this a primary in
It
May?
is a primary.
Okay,
It is a partisan seat, but right now I'm running as a Democrat. The
okay,
current person holding the seat is also a Democrat, so we will both be on the Democratic ticket. It's a
gotcha.
very important election cycle. We have 5 Superior Court judges that are also on that
Right,
ticket.
that's
Um,
right.
the only opportunity to vote for your Superior Court judges will be on that May 24th ballot. So I just need people to keep scrolling down till you get to Solicitor General and you see Lisa Marie Bristol. Put a check next to my name.
Cool. Lisa Marie, thank you for being with me. I appreciate it. And I'll have more links within the show notes so people can look at this, link up with you in case they, after the show. So, if you have questions, obviously reach out to Lisa Marie, or put your questions in the comments and we'll make sure that we can get an answer for you. So thank you again. Appreciate it. Everyone check out our latest issue of Peachtree Corners magazine. If it hasn't hit your mailbox, let me know. You should be getting it if you haven't already gotten it. Otherwise, go online to livinginpeachtreecorners.com and find out more information. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.